to the What's Your Story podcast, where we share the extraordinary stories of women just like you in the hopes that you too will consider your own story and how God wants to use you for His glory. I'm Stephanie Cook, a life coach, Enneagram coach, speaker, empty nester, and big Tennessee Vols fan. My co-host, Hannah Conway, is a best-selling author of Christian fiction, mom of three, the social media marketing and women's ministry director at our local church in Clarksville, Tennessee, and she roots for the Kentucky Wildcats. Yet somehow, we make it work. We both love stories and consider it a privilege to meet new friends and introduce them to you each week. We are so glad that you are taking a few minutes of your day to spend time with us, and we hope that you'll be back for a new episode each week and share our podcast with your family and your friends. Now let's get to today's episode of the What's Your Story podcast. On today's episode of What's Your Story, we are so excited to introduce you to Amy Lamping. Amy is one of those people that God is using in extraordinary ways as she currently works as a school resource officer, but she's also a military wife, she's a mom, and she's got quite the history of some stories to tell from the law enforcement field. So we know that you are going to enjoy meeting her and hearing her story as much as we did. So without further ado, let's get to today's episode with Amy Lamping. So I'm pretty excited that the sun is shining.
I know.
The birds are singing and the grass is growing and
it's coming back to life. Right. Everything's coming back to life. It's wonderful. Mm-hmm. I need the sun in my life for my pale skin.
You've had spring break.
Oh, it's so glorious and wonderful.
Yeah, I'm excited for our school system folks because, I've always said
downhill.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, Dr. Worthington would always compare the school year to a pregnancy. Have you heard me talk about this before?
No, that's so accurate.
Yeah. And he would say, in August, you're like super excited. You're like, you just found out you're pregnant. And he's like, December, you're like halfway there. And he's like, by this time of year, you're like, get this kid out of my body. So that's kind of where we are. We're in that last 9 weeks where these teachers are like, this has been real fun.
I know.
Time to go.
I always remember I would put up like 3 months at a time of my calendar. So, it helped me plan, right? Help me visualize. But every day I would look in and be like, I can do this. And then when you would see May, right, you'd see that end of the year. And so they're at this point where they are seeing that light at the end of the tunnel. And I know they're feeling it. I feel you, all you teachers out there. We feel you.
Love them so much. But yeah,
absolutely.
It's downhill from here. So, yeah.
Well, our guest today does have something to do with the school system. And I don't know, police. What do you call this? Law enforcement?
I'm super excited.
I know. So I have a sweet, sweet friend of mine on the podcast today. We go to church together. We're good friends. And Miss Amy Lamping is here. And Amy, I'm excited. I know she's cut me some eyes.
Yes.
Welcome, girlfriend.
I love when we invite our friends on and then they're nervous and they're like, this is not going to be fun. And I always promise him, and I promised Amy the same thing. I'm like, I promise you in the first 5 or 10 minutes, you'll feel nervous, but by the end, you'll be like, oh, that was just like having a conversation with friends. So
it's just like that.
You'll forget about it. It'll all be good.
Yes.
It'll all be good.
I'm definitely nervous.
Welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited, but nervous at the same time. This is not my wheelhouse for sure.
Well, introduce yourself. So you're Amy Lamping. So tell us about your family, your kids, your hobbies, like all those kinds of things.
Okay. Well, again, I'm Amy Lamping. I am married to James Lamping. He is a pilot with the U.S. Army. We have 3 kids together. We have Ty, Harper, and Tucker. They are 12, 10, and 6.
Crazy.
Yes. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I am a sheriff's deputy. So it's a little different. You said police. Actually, the police are city.
Oh.
And sheriff's deputies are with the county.
Okay.
So that
Did
is
not
a little
know this.
different. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I laughed and told Hannah when you pulled into the driveway, I'm like, oh, the neighbors are going to talk. We've got the patrol
here.
car in the driveway. So
we get that a lot.
Yes.
I'm from Henry County, which is just west of here.
Oh,
across
we're
the
where?
Tennessee River. Don't you worry. I will make sure that everybody knows where I'm from.
Yeah.
Yes, I know everybody loves to see Henry County come to town. So,
Yeah. It's better than when you have to go there.
Oh,
I know y'all don't like coming to Henry County.
it's
that's for
awful.
sure. We are very proud of our sports teams over there. So
We'll have to talk about that a little bit later.
definitely, I'm not ashamed of where I'm from. I have worked for the Sheriff's Department since 2019. I worked there for a short period in 2016 before James got chosen for flight school and we moved to Alabama for a little while. But I'm a school resource officer. I currently work at East Montgomery and Clarksville elementary schools, which I love. Those are great schools
Good
to work
schools.
in.
They are. They are good schools.
So we're very blessed to live in Montgomery County. We've been here since 2008.
Gosh, really?
So we've been here for a very long time, except for that short stint in Alabama.
Okay.
So we love it here. We've been at Hilldale since 2013.
Ah,
So no, longer than that.
really?
Yes.
So we came in
since-
2011.
So Ty was a year old. So he's 12 now. So that's longer than that,
Yeah.
isn't it? A lot longer.
Oh, that's been a hot
I'm not
minute.
good with math. I was never a teacher. So we've been there a long time and we love Hilldale Baptist Church. We teach Sunday school at the FLC. We teach the 2 and 3 year olds. So we love that. And anyway, that's who I am in a little nutshell.
Yeah. You're pretty amazing.
Stop.
No,
it.
I'm for real. Like, okay, I'm not even kidding. And we will just talk about this. I kind of laugh. She is an amazing homemaker as well. Like her hospitality is bar none, and she's an amazing cook. So when you meet her, you're like, oh, this beautiful Southern belle. She cooks. She's just adorable. Oh, by the way, she packs a gun.
Yes, Hannah has coined her Paula Deen with a gun, and I love it. I like that. I like that idea. I like that title.
I'm like, oh, by the way, she will arrest you.
Yes, yes.
I think you're a little biased.
Well, I was just thinking as you were talking about you and your husband both being,
Yes.
in military and law enforcement. I'm like, that's probably not a house you want to mess with. Just thinking.
But you're both pretty chill. Like you really are.
James is very relaxed. He's very, very calm.
Yeah, and you are. I mean, I know that you would say that you're not a calm person, but I feel like you have a very calming presence.
Oh, well,
So-
thank you. Thank you. I get excited a little bit, but it's more happy excited, not ugly
Right.
excited.
Yeah.
If I don't have to be.
Yeah. So you said you've been at Hilldale a long time. So tell us a little bit about your faith story.
So my mama and daddy were both raised in the church, in the Baptist church, and they raised us in church for most of our lives. Now, my father was called to preach when he was a young man, but he did not surrender to preach for a long, long time. So even they planted a church when we were young. They planted a New Harmony Baptist Church in a basement, and with 3 other families, and so they had a strong faith with our family growing up, and so I was saved when I was in Vacation Bible School, actually by the woman that became my sister-in-law.
Oh, that's neat.
She led me to Jesus at Vacation Bible School when I was in elementary school. So we've, always been in the church, but my mom and dad, my daddy didn't surrender to preach. And as y'all know, that if you don't follow God's path, oftentimes you veer away from the church because you're not doing what the Lord wants you to do. And so you don't want to be surrounded by people that remind you that you're not doing what the Lord wants you to do.
Right.
So, during that Vacation Bible School, the reason that I was led to Jesus, I mean, he wanted me to come to him, but I was sad because my parents had separated. They were going through some issues. And all of that leads back to the devil. Dad and mom were going through issues, but once he surrendered to preach, once he did what the Lord wanted him to do, the world changed for our family. They came back, and that wasn't until college. So my parents had, gone back and forth into in and out of church throughout our lives, but they put that in us when it needed to be,
Right.
I was born into a house where my grandfathers were deacons in the church, and both of my brothers have been deacons, and we've always had the church around, and so I wanted that for my family.
Right.
And so hopefully me and James are setting a good example for our children. I know we don't do right every day, but we're trying to expose our children to what they need to do. But it's been a struggle, they're out. I think everybody has a struggle, but I thank the Lord that my daddy was able to, that late in life.
Yeah. Surrender
to what the Lord had for his life all that time.
Yeah.
And he has made such a incredible change in his life and in my mom's life. She had said when he knew that he needed to be a preacher all those years ago when he was called to preach when he was a young man, she said, I don't want to be a preacher's wife. I'm not supposed to be a preacher's wife. So she was fighting the calling that the Lord had for her life too. And so, I've always said we have to go where the Lord leads us. Mm-hmm. And they didn't for a long, long time. And that led to so much turmoil in their relationship and in their lives. And when they finally did, that the Lord gave them a church. They've been at Bethany Baptist Church for 20 years now, I believe. Wow. And so there's just so many amazing things that have come from that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And,
that's interesting though. I mean, you're the product of that. So you get to see, you had the benefits of growing up around Christians, right? Mm-hmm. But you also got to see what happens when you do not do what God wants you to do, and that you were impacted by that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. And now I will say I have not led a great life. There have been struggles in my own life, but I can look back now and see that pattern and that, those decisions and how that leads our life.
Right.
I have two brothers that have wonderful relationships, and they are wonderful men. Their wives are wonderful ladies. One of my brothers, Rusty, he has a ministry with his brother, and they travel, or with his brother-in-law, I'm sorry, and they travel, and they do, they have a show on the Outdoor Channel, and and it's based on faith. Yeah. And my sister-in-law, she wrote a book called Green Pastures of a Barren Plain, and it has a devotional that goes with it. So, I mean, faith has always been in our lives. Right. Whether we pull away from it or not is still there. And so I was very blessed with that in my life.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the importance then of going where God leads you. So how did you wind up in law enforcement?
Well, now that's a story.
We're here
that's
for
why
it.
you're here. We're here for a story.
Yes. So, like I said, I haven't always been the best. When I was 17 years old, I was drinking underage at a house party, and I decided when the cops showed up that I was not going to just sit there and be arrested and them call my parents. And so I ran out the back door and was tackled by a law enforcement officer. And it was the sheriff's department. They handcuffed me and put me in the back of a car and took me to the sheriff's department. Rod Fry was his name. He was not the one that tackled me, by the way, but he's the one that took me to the sheriff's office. And he told me, he was nice to me. He was polite. He was kind. And he said, this is not the worst day of your life. Oh. This does not set the pattern for the rest of your life. This is just one bump in the road. Mm. We were not charged. We did not have to go to juvenile court, but our mamas did have to come pick us up. Ooh. And that was worse than being charged, I think, because my mama whooped me. They came out and they said, ma'am, if you don't stop whooping that girl, we're going to arrest you. So anyway, and Rod from that day on was my mentor. I asked, what do I do to be a law enforcement officer? I never wanted to be in law enforcement. I was definitely not the kind of girl that was a law enforcement officer, but that's what I decided to do. And so I went to Murray State University. I got my degree in criminal justice. I started my career with the Department of Children's Services. I was a child abuse and neglect investigator with the state of Tennessee.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, girl.
That is not a law enforcement position. It's a social work position, which I'm not a social worker. I removed child after child from the Humphreys, Houston, and Dixon County areas. A lot of neglected children, a lot of drug-exposed children during that time. I was very fortunate to work with a lot of great law enforcement officers that helped me get into law enforcement. I moved on from there to the Alcoholic Beverage Commission, where I did drug and alcohol investigations. They put me through the Police Academy, the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy, and I was there for 9 years doing drug and alcohol work. Then I went on to the bomb and arson section of the Department of Commerce and Insurance, which is also, it was a law enforcement section of a regulatory agency. They no longer exist. The agents were absorbed by the TBI. And then I came to the sheriff's office. So that's kind of been my path through different law enforcement agencies.
Yeah. So you've seen some hard stuff.
Yes, ma'am. I did a lot of undercover drug work, and we were able to, if we could use like illegal alcohol sales and marijuana sales to get into any other kind of crime, then we did that. So I did a lot of undercover work in those areas when I was young.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can do as much undercover work anymore. But it was fun. It was exciting during those times. I worked in some areas that I never thought I would step into. A lot of bars in downtown Nashville, a lot of low income areas in on the Alabama state line in those counties. Because I was a state agent, I could work anywhere in the state of Tennessee. And then when I went to bomb and arson, I did arson investigations and homicides, things like that. So during that time, I did I had to go to autopsies and things like that. So it was a lot of different kinds of criminal investigations.
But when I see you, I see someone who is very kind and compassionate. You're very loving. You're very giving, very generous, and you're good with kiddos. And yet you also are this defender, right? Like I'm going to help protect. You were someone who had someone help you and show you kindness and mercy. So I love that you're able to give back to the community in this way and also stand in the gap of kiddos in the school system and kiddos that you've been able to help rescue and defend in other areas.
Well, I always have, just even as you're talking, and we had Jill Ayers, who was a judge on, and and Jill's a very kind, compassionate person too. And one of the things we talked about on that podcast was how hard sometimes that it is. Like, you have to be a person that understands boundaries and feels strongly about boundaries, but you can do it in a kind way. And so even just hearing your story, he didn't say, you didn't do anything wrong, it's all going to be fine. It was like, you screwed up, but it doesn't have to be the worst day of your life. And so, to speak to that, like, how do you get your head around these folks are criminals, they've broken laws, there's a problem, there has to be a consequence, but at the same time, they're a human being and you're kind and you're compassionate. And so how do you carry that into your work every day?
Well, I think most of all, I have to remember that it could be my child or it could be my parent. But for the grace of God, go I.
Right.
If I hadn't have ran that night, if I hadn't have come into contact with Rod that night, what life could I have had? If I had made different decisions at different times, I could be there. And so I would have wanted someone to treat me with kindness. If my children go out and make mistakes, I want people to treat them with kindness. So every time I come into contact with a child or an adult, I want to treat them the way I would want to be treated. So you never want to tell them that they didn't make a mistake, because obviously there's a mistake that has been made, but you want to explain to them what has occurred, why their decision wasn't the right decision to have been made, and how we can rectify the situation. So this isn't the end of the world, no matter what's happened. As long as nobody, as long as they're still breathing, we can work on it.
Right.
but they have to face the consequences that has occurred. And from here, we can make better decisions. So, and oftentimes I get the thing that, well, you work in an elementary school, you just work with babies. They're not committing big crimes, whatever. But I also work with parents, and I work with people that I have been there with the big crimes. And so I'm just choosing now to do the elementary school, because I figure at this point they can look to me on how to deal with relationships with law enforcement in their future.
Yeah.
So I want them to know that they can trust law enforcement, that there's nothing to be afraid of when coming in contact with law enforcement, and that they can always turn to us for help at any time. I don't want them to be afraid of us.
Right.
I love that outlook. Absolutely. Which is a nice segue into the next thing that we wanted to talk about. It's over the last few years, as with many helping professions, it seems like there might be a lack of respect, or gratitude is low amongst specifically your profession as, in law enforcement. Could we talk about that? Like, have you felt that? And you obviously are being part of the solution.
Well, I hope. I don't think that personally I felt it. And I think in one regard, if we're teaching our children respect for everyone,
right,
that we're not really, that's the best thing that we can do. Like you're teaching them to respect their teachers. You're teaching them to respect any adult they come in contact with. So you're teaching them to respect law enforcement or any other person that they come in contact with. I am fortunate that I haven't had to deal with any major disrespectful situations in which that they're disrespecting me as a law enforcement officer.
Right.
I don't think that they were choosing to disrespect me because I was a law enforcement officer versus any other reason that they would be disrespectful. I do know that a lot of times we ask, what can our children do when faced with law enforcement to do better?
Right.
Like, what can we, if they were to be pulled over, what decisions could they make to make it go smoother?
Right.
Have their driver's license ready. Always make sure that they have their identification or driver's license. Always make sure that they have their insurance card, their registration. Please make sure to talk to your children about not having their cell phones in their hand when they're driving. Distracted driving is a huge cause of accidents. I know y'all seen the statistics on things like that. When they're hands-free driving doesn't mean having it out here versus having it to your ear. We see that all the time. Just making sure that they know what they need when they are pulled over, keeping their hands on the steering wheel versus moving around when a law enforcement officer pulls them over, things like that. But,
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you, when you were working in, drugs and alcohol, when you were working in some of the neglect, the child abuse, you've seen some horrible things, I feel certain. So how do you continue to have hope and faith in humanity when you go into these places and you see these dark things? What is it that helps you to kind of wake up the next morning and be like, the sun's shining and it's a good day and we're going to be okay?
It's hard. Some days it's harder than others. I'm very, very fortunate that I have a very good family, a very supportive family. The first time that I saw a child being autopsied almost took me out of the law enforcement field. It wasn't even a case that I was working on. It just happened to be, if you go into an autopsy suite, it's like a whole bunch of them going on. It's a little blonde-haired little boy that was absolutely gorgeous. And I still remember to this day what he looked like. And it was in 2012. And I thought I was going to just walk out and quit, and that was right after I started with bomb and arson. And it almost broke my heart. I just had Harper the October before, and this was in June of 2012. And I thought, well, I can't do this. This is not the job for me. But my daddy prayed for me, and it was where I needed to be to help people And I knew it because I made it through it. And we got through it. You know, we as a family, you know, and I did have some hard times through that, some anxiety with Harper being little and seeing another child in those situations. And I know that a lot of law enforcement officers have issues with PTSD and things like that. Now, I didn't have any PTSD, but I did, you know, deal with just seeing your own children in those situations when you witness traumatic events like that. So I think every day when I come home to my family, when I pull in the driveway and shut my patrol car doors, or in the garage and shut my patrol car doors, I'm able to shut up what I've been through that day and put it away. When I take off that uniform and put on my PJs, because I do every day when I come home, I just wash away, put away what I've been through and focus on my kids and my husband and my family.
So what a gift. So you're able to compartmentalize, it sounds like, very well.
I try my very best to, and then move on with loving my family. And then the next day we'll start again. Because the Lord's blessed me to be able to help these other people.
Yeah.
But he's also blessed me with a beautiful, wonderful family.
Right.
And he doesn't want me to neglect them for someone else. He just wants me to focus on to help these other people, but to also, you know, cherish the family I have. And, my daddy's always said, you just tell me you're doing paperwork when you're buying drugs or you're doing something else. But he's always said, you know, your kind heart is a gift.
Yeah.
Because I've asked him several times, why did the Lord give me this heart, this soft heart? Because I don't want it.
Yeah.
I don't want it anymore. Just harden my heart.
To do this job. Right. Yeah.
Just harden my heart against all these feelings and these tears. And he's like, well, no, that's a gift. Everybody doesn't have a soft heart. Well, lucky them.
Definitely not everybody in your profession.
No. And, you know, that you're always going to run into stuff like that, but we're very fortunate. I think I have been very fortunate to run into some good ones along the way.
So, I mean, goodness, I know we have other questions, but I'm just going to assume like your faith helps get you through. And how has your faith in God helped you?
Well, I don't know that I could have been in law enforcement. Well, I know I couldn't have been in law enforcement for this long without faith.
Right.
I cannot imagine waking up each day and going to work without the Lord being by my side carrying me some days.
Yeah.
Some days I just feel like he has just carried me all through the day.
Yeah.
You know, whether it makes somebody being ugly to me when I tell them to move, you know, their car or just keeping me safe when I was doing silly stuff, working undercover, you know, just getting me home. But I know there's people out there that don't have the Lord. And so I hope that others see my faith every day. And that's what gets me up and gets me going and gets me moving every day is that they can see him and me.
Right.
So, you know, we've got to pass it on. See, you know, take that joy and the love that we have.
Right.
And let them see it in us.
Absolutely. That's what you're called to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you tell if you're talking to a young woman who's like, I think I want to do this? What kinds of things would you say to her? What would you advise her against or about?
Oh, no.
Well, I mean, being a woman in this line of work has to be its own. I mean, that's amazing. It's amazing. Look at you, girl.
Well, it's I would say it's a challenge, but it's not a challenge that's not overcomable, you know. It's still rare to say that you're a woman in law enforcement. Now, Metro has a ton of women in law enforcement. That's a huge department, right? But I would say go for it. You know, do your best. I think any woman can do anything she wants to do. I mean, goodness, we do a lot.
Yeah, we do.
Don't let anybody make you think you can't do it. but know what challenges you're going to face. We still face the challenges of, well, who's going to watch your kids while you're working?
Yeah.
Well, who watches the man's kids while they're working? It's the same thing.
Right.
I say go for it. Try your best. Do your best, and don't let anybody tell you can't do anything.
Yeah.
That's,
Did you feel supported by, the colleagues, the folks you were in school with who may or may not have been females? Did you feel like there was some that would look at you and say, you're never going to make this? Like, did you ever come up against any of that?
I never felt like I couldn't do it when I was in college, ever. My parents did not want me to be a law enforcement officer. They did not want me to be a patrol officer. And I think every woman, every man that goes into law enforcement, I think they should all go to patrol first. I never went to patrol. And that's something that I do wish that my career, that I had done. I spent
Why?
Because I think it's a step that you need to go through.
Okay.
I think it's a building block on every carerer.
And by patrol, I'm making assumptions. So tell us what you mean by patrol. Like being out on the streets?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So just going out, answering calls, responding to calls, working wrecks, things like that. I spent 2 weeks when I came to the sheriff's department. So the sheriff's department in the city, those are the ones that do patrol in your counties and cities. And I think everybody should do that. I came to the school resource officer position from the state. So I was already certified. I was already commissioned. So I didn't get to do that. But I would have had my parents not wanted me to.
Right.
I went straight to the DCS from college. So I would definitely recommend doing that, taking that step, because I think it's a building block on your career that you need that knowledge.
You are in a career that is predominantly male. Do you feel respected by your male colleagues? She's like, I don't know, maybe.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think once they get to know me.
Right.
Now, I haven't been in the sheriff's department a really long time, so there's a lot of them that just don't know me.
Right.
Okay, there has to be. Let's just be honest. Let's talk honestly. Looking at you,
I know, she's stunning.
there have to be men in your life that are like, there's no way you can do this. There have to be assumptions that have been made about you.
I'm sure there have been, yes. But when you're a school resource officer, a lot of people don't even know you exist outside. You stay at your school and they don't really know you. I know that a lot of people don't think that I have a lot of knowledge because they don't know what I've done before being a school resource officer.
Yeah.
They just.
But even at that, I've worked with lots of school resource officers, and you guys still come up against more things than anyone can ever imagine.
Right.
Let's just say that.
Yes.
Like, there's this assumption that you're telling people to not run in the hallways.
Oh,
That is
I wish
not
that
what
were
you do.
it.
That's not what you're doing. Like, there's stuff going down constantly, and we're very fortunate to have you guys.
Yes.
Well, and we appreciate that, because a lot of people don't realize that. They think that we're maybe a security guard or a hall monitor. And there is so much in the school system that people don't realize.
Right.
Yep.
And yes.
Yeah.
And Montgomery County is a huge school
It
system.
is, 37,000-ish students and growing. So many schools. I know that at one point there were 23 elementary, but there may be more than that now. It's like
I think there might be 24 now, but
Yeah.
The county that I came from has one high school.
Right. Oh, we know. We're very aware. We haven't talked about that.
Yeah.
We
We'll
know.
skip over that one.
But so I think, I don't know, I would hope to think that people would take the opportunity to get to know me.
Right.
And but I am most of the time I try to be very happy and bubbly, and people take that the wrong way too. They think that means I'm not very bright.
Because you're kind, you must be weak.
Yes.
Right.
And I have an accent.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's picked up on that yet. But I have a very strong accent, so people take that as I'm not very intelligent either. So I don't know if we talked about this, but I also have a master's degree from MTSU.
Did not know this about you. And what? Yeah.
Well, criminal justice administration.
Of course you do.
So I worked on that while I was working for the state, And,
Wow.
Finished it when I was pregnant with Harper after I had our son Ty. Yeah.
Wow.
Working
my
full
goodness.
time
And doing all the things.
Go, girl.
And I know. You just keep getting more cool
I know.
by the second. It's incredible.
So when you went to your high school class reunion, assuming you did,
I did.
were people like, "Oh my
I
goodness,
went to
you're
two,
in law
'cause I'm
enforcement"?
old.
Like, were they like, "I can't believe you went into law enforcement," or were they like, "Of course you went into law enforcement"?
No, I don't think most people knew that I went into law enforcement.
Like, were you that kid in high school that was like, "I'm going to make a difference, and I'm
No.
tough, and I can do this"? Was that you?
No, I was first made in the Hostess Princess pageant. So, yes. Yeah, that's who I was.
love it. Like, I'm just picturing Sandra Bullock in Miss Congeniality. Like, this is what I'm picturing at this moment.
No, I always shaved my legs. But, no. But, yeah, so I don't know that anybody was really, because of social media and things like that, they probably all knew that I had chosen that career path maybe, but
Yeah. But my question is more like, were you always kind of bent toward that kind of thing? Or was it like, what?
Yes.
Like, how did you get from here to here?
no, I definitely was not. No.
It's amazing, though.
Because again, in high school, I was arrested for underage drinking, so or picked up. I was never arrested.
Well, I will
Yeah.
just
Let's
say,
clarify
I will
that.
just go on record and say,
Oh, gosh, what? What?
That-
I'm scared.
no, that I'm thinking about the law enforcement officers in my life that I went to high school with and may or may not have been at some of those events with them. And it's funny to me, the ones that chose to do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is
So
a different
it does help to
line,
have
yeah.
some knowledge base, right? About
Right.
some shenanigans
Right.
that could or could not happen. Like,
Well,
yes.
when you work undercover, you need to know how to do those things and how to
Yes.
ask
Yeah.
for things, or
Yeah. We tell our children all the time, don't think we don't know, because
Yes,
Oh, goodness.
we've got some, unfortunately, we've got some experience.
yes,
All those things. Yes, Amy, you've been wonderful in our life as we're parenting teenagers
Yes.
and just being there for us, and times
I'll
that we're
always
like,
be there.
oh, what's wrong with our kids? And you just have been able to be like, Hannah, calm down.
Yes.
It's
We'll
okay.
get through this.
It's going to be all right. Yeah.
So how do your kids feel about it?
they don't care as long as I'm not the my middle schooler. As long as I'm not the SRO at his school, he doesn't really. He's fine. The younger two. I was the SRO at their school for a short period of time just because it's how it worked out. I do not want to be the SRO at their school because my daughter, Harper, she'll do things like have her teacher call the front office because she left her lunchbox at home. I need to talk to my mom now. And they're like, why do you need to talk to your mom? It's really important. I just need to talk to my mom.
Oh, my gosh.
And they're like, Amy, Harper needs you. Okay, I'll run down there. I left my lunchbox at home. That's not an emergency.
That's
Yeah.
not an emergency.
Like
Yeah.
an emergency is you split your britches and you need new pants. This is not an emergency, So they don't really
Yeah.
either. They're not like, oh, my mom's the school cop or anything like that. They could not care less that I have a patrol car or anything like that.
How funny is that? Because I'm like, I'm so impressed. And they're like, meh.
Yeah, they don't care.
It's all they've ever known, though, right?
It's all they've ever known.
Okay, so I have two questions, and then I know we probably need to be wrapping up soon. But I want to know, how does he deal with your career? Because you could definitely be in dangerous situations, and I mean his job definitely is. He's in dangerous situations all the time. That's right. How does he deal with that? How do you all? I mean, I know as a military wife how I dealt with Stephen in situations, but he's never really had to think about me being in a dangerous career. So how does James handle that? How do you all?
Well, James.
Pretty
He
chill.
is very. He doesn't talk about his feelings.
He does not.
He does not.
He and Stephen are alike in that way.
Yeah, him and Stephen are pretty
But
right there
same
together.
person. Yeah.
So that's all he's ever known.
Yeah.
So he's never really, as far as I know, he does worry about me, but it's never been an issue.
You're right. Never
There's
been,
been
like, you need to leave this career.
Oh no,
Okay.
no, he would never do anything like that. Because he knows it makes me happy.
Right.
And if I'm happy, he's going to be happy. He also knows this is like what I was made for.
Right. Right.
And I think he's been through all three of those fields. So
Yeah,
when I
right.
did undercover drug work and alcohol work, when I did bomb and arson, and now that I've been a school resource, he's been through it all. Even when I was a yoga and Pilates instructor down in Alabama.
What? You did that too?
Yeah.
What in the
Well,
world?
I taught you yoga. Remember?
That's right, you
Yeah,
did.
or Pilates.
That was so much fun.
We did that.
That's right.
When I was in Alabama, I taught that. So I don't like to sit still. So he's been through all those changes in our lives, but he's always known that law enforcement's my passion.
Yeah.
And so helping people is what I do. I always thought, I'm like, I don't know what my gift is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've got this God-given gift. And I was always like, I don't know what mine is. And my mom and dad were like, service.
Yeah.
Like,
Clearly.
how do you not know
Clearly.
this? And I'm like, well, okay. So, he knows that that's my passion and it's what I'm meant to do. So, when I came to the sheriff's office, it was like I finally found my home.
Yeah.
These other things I was good at, I did them well. I helped people and I felt it, but it wasn't my home. And I
Right.
feel like the sheriff's office is where I found my home. And there's so many different departments there, so many different divisions that I feel like if for some reason the school resource office or division somehow, that I grow out of it or my direction changes for one reason or another, there's still other places there, that can be my home. But I just feel such a camaraderie there that I think that's where I'll retire from eventually. If I ever get that inkling. I don't know that I'll ever
I
sit
know.
still.
I can't imagine you retiring.
No.
I'm like, girl, you're going to kill over
Yes, probably. Yes.
88 years old.
So you still love your job. That's what I hear you
Yes.
say. I still love what I get to do. I love
yes.
my job.
I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to do it.
Yeah.
Even when I'm tired and I feel like I just laid down when the alarm goes off, which it goes off very early every day. I'm very blessed to be able to do it.
Oh, makes me so happy.
Yeah.
Okay, my next thing, I need you to tell our listeners how you got into your house when you locked your keys out. I need you to tell, because I would have crawled through a window, but please tell the listeners what you did.
Well, so James and I had just bought a house, and he went to Louisiana for steer school. And it was a new house, and the only extra key was with my mother, who lives an hour and a half away. And so I could not get in the door. I tried everything, and it was the garage door. It wasn't an outside door.
Okay, that does make it better,
Okay,
but
makes it different,
still,
right?
Still.
Like the garage door, like that goes up and down, like to put your car in garage door, or
No,
like the side door on the garage?
The house door in between the garage and the house.
Okay.
Like you
Yeah.
you
Yes.
drive into the garage and then you get
And then that
out of
door.
your
Gotcha.
car.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's not an exterior door.
Still.
That makes it better, right? So I
Continue.
couldn't get in and I couldn't figure out how to get in. And so I kicked the door in.
I mean,
I love
problem solving skills. That's what I hear her saying. I was trained. I have problem solving skills. I solved my problem.
Was this the first door you ever kicked in?
No.
Oh my goodness. She's so incredible. I'm going to be like you when I grow up baby lamping.
And we didn't fix that door until I think we sold the house because it wasn't like destroyed, it was just,
Had a little dent in it.
it just, yeah.
How did James feel about that?
He was not happy about that. And he taught me how to open it with a credit card after that. I didn't know how.
I love that
all have
story.
our
It is
skills.
probably one of my
Yes.
favorite Amy Lamping stories. It is
So that is your favorite Amy
That's
Lamping
my
story.
favorite
So
one.
let's go to our final question. Is there anything else you wanted to share that we haven't talked about?
I don't know.
It's been fun.
Yeah, it has been fun.
Or our last question we always ask is, what's your favorite story? It can be a Bible story. It can be a real story. It can be a movie. It can be...
So I did think about this question. I thought, I've lived this pretty cool life. And I grew up in this great hometown with two big brothers that are amazing and a mom and dad that are awesome. I should have these great stories to tell of my life that would really interest you guys. And then me and my husband, who is an amazing man, you don't know him very well, but Hannah knows him. He's very quiet and reserved. And so a lot of people think he doesn't have a lot of personality, but he really does. He's really funny.
He is really funny.
So Veterans Day, which should be about him because he's an active duty Army soldier, we were going to take the kids to do something fun this past year, and they acted awful. So instead of taking them to do something fun, me and James decided we're going to go do something fun, like have a day date, right?
Yes.
And so he said, well, where do you want to go to lunch? I'm like, well, it's about you. He's like, well, I don't care. I'm not very hungry. I said, well, then let's make it about me. I've never gotten to go to the Mad Herbalist, right?
Oh.
So I don't know if y'all been there, but
I haven't. He went with you?
well,
Stephen
yes.
will not don the doors.
Well, he didn't know anything about it.
Oh,
okay.
gotcha. Gotcha.
So we go, and I love hot teas.
Yes.
James, not so much a hot tea man. If you've ever seen him, he's very muscular. He works out quite a bit, and he's more of a meat and potato kind of guy. So we go, and there's not supposed to be children there. I think they've started allowing children sometimes, but they have a very small menu that has like salads, small
Dainty
salads, hummus.
Yeah.
And then they had like
There's no meatloaf and mashed potatoes.
They had like PB&J, a grilled cheese, tahini, something with tahini. It was very limited. And James goes, I thought you said they didn't have kids here. I'm like, they don't have kids here. And I was like, don't you like the teas? He's like, I don't like hot tea. I'm like, you can get it with sparkling water, sparkling tea.
Makes it better.
And he's like, they said, and the man comes out, the waiter, and he goes, we have soup. We have chicken noodle soup, and we can make it vegan by just shaking out the chicken. And I'm like, I don't think that's how you make it vegan. And I was just like, okay. So I look at James, and I look at the waiter, and I go, does he look like he's going to have anything vegan? And the waiter's like, okay. So then James is like, so you don't have children, but you have children's items on the menu.
Like, what's going on?
So James was terribly destroyed about the whole menu. And so he had a PB&J and fruit for lunch.
Oh.
And I have this wonderful picture that I'll have to show you before I leave today about this day with James and his PB&J and his fruit cup. At a restaurant that's not supposed to have children.
Oh.
And my beautiful teas where I had my
Did
chicken
you
salad.
enjoy it?
I enjoyed my chicken salad.
Did y'all
my
leave
hot
there and go
teas.
to a pizza buffet?
No, he said, I think you're going to have to take me to lunch after this. But it was a wonderful day for me.
Yeah.
And
not so much.
and not for, so much for James with his tea and vegan offering of noodles in hot water.
I'm sorry.
I love you guys
Yes.
so much.
Yes.
Goodness.
Well, thank you for being here.
yes.
I know you were nervous,
Yes.
but you did a great job. And
Wow.
I love hearing about, how women are called into professions that make them strong examples, role models, all the things. And so thank you for what you do.
Well,
Absolutely. Thank
y'all
you.
for having
And for your
me.
heart, which is very evident through everything that
thank
you've
you.
said. So.
And I'm going to need your mac and cheese recipe because Stephen loves it. Share your recipes with me. We'll talk about your.
We could do that.
That's really good. Oh, are you kidding? She is
Man.
like Paula
Jack of all
Deen
trades.
with a gun.
That's what I'm going to call the episode.
Paula Deen,
Paula Deen
with
with
a
a
gun.
We hope that if you know Amy, you will reach out and let her know how much you enjoyed hearing her story. We are so grateful for her being here today. As always, thank you for spending time with us. We love it when you share our episodes with your family and your friends. That helps us to grow. And we can't wait to be with you again next week on Easter Sunday with a brand new devotional all around Mary Magdalene. So we'll see you then.